Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's event. My name is Hayla Alawi, and on behalf of Atmosphere Press, I am so pleased to welcome you to today's live author reading of new literary fiction and poetry. We're going to be hearing from Carlos Nicolás Flores, author of Pillars of Creation, A Quest for the Great Name in a Nietzschean World, released on July 22nd. Martin Zelder, author of Recovering Maurice, a novel releasing on September 2nd, and Travis Hupp, author of American Entropy, Poems, which also was released on July 22nd. All three authors' books can be purchased both from online retailers and from select bookstores. And of course, you can also find the books on Atmosphere Press's website. That's at atmospherepress.com/books. And just to make it easier for you, I'm going to put the links directly to each book in the chat so you can access them that way. At the end of today's event, we are going to have time for audience questions. So during the readings, if you have a question for one or more of our authors, you can type those in the chat and I'll make sure they get asked. Please do stay muted for the duration of the event, but feel free to use the chat for praise and comments in addition to your questions. One last note is that we at Atmosphere Press appreciate your support today and always. If you have a manuscript of your own, we would love to read it, so submit your work today to books@atmospherepress.com. Again, thank you so much for tuning in and supporting Carlos, Martin, and Travis today. We're going to start off with our first reader, who is Carlos Nicolás Flores. Carlos, a lifelong resident of the Texas-Mexico border, has much lived experience to draw from as a writer. In Our House on Hueco, a young adult novel about growing up in El Paso and sex as a political condition, a satire of the cultural wars on the Texas-Mexico border, he has written about this region with a keen eye. Today, we'll be hearing Carlos read from Pillars of Creation, A Quest for the Great Name in a Nietzschean World. Where is God amidst the mass graves, the poverty, the drug trafficking, and corrupt officials on the Texas-Mexico border? In this Nietzschean world, a secular realm fraught with fear and loathing, where God has been declared dead, Yoltic's quest for redemption and wisdom unfolds. Let's now welcome Carlos.
Good afternoon or good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. Thank you very much for the introduction. My book has a main character named Yoltic Cortez, and what I'm going to be reading to you is something more or less amenable, palatable, and I put it that way, from the book, because it in many ways is a dark novel. And it's a memory that he has of his father, okay? And right now he's headed from the colonia where he lives to downtown Escandon, which is a border town. And anyway, he's on a motorcycle, just FYI. And so the memory is about how the father came to the border and then ultimately met his mother. So let me read. You grew up here at Plaza Zaragoza and the Curse. That's the chapter. You grew up hearing stories about your father's past. Not all of it, of course, because there were some things he was ashamed of and refused to divulge, but enough to see that his had been a difficult childhood. He especially loved narrating stories about watching his father, your grandfather, work in the fields for a landlord who, bullwhip in hand, roamed the hacienda on a white horse. Your grandfather lived in a choza, a straw hut on the edge of a stream that flooded the neighborhood when the hurricane came up in the Pacific, so his family was forced to shelter in a cave until the storm subsided. He ran on bare feet on cool dirt floor until he was old enough to wear huaraches, whereupon he stepped into a world of white mantas and big straw sombreros worn by men who used machetes to work in the fields. His mother had 9 children, but only 3 survived. Then came the revolution. Many died, but your father's family survived. I was born with the gene to travel north, your father declared. However, he was too poor to travel. Besides, he was married with 2 children and she didn't want to leave. They divorced. At the age of 40, he arrived in Nuevo Escandon on a bus with only the clothes on his back and dreams of going to Chicago. However, he fell sick and Sue ran out of money. So he shined shoes in Plaza Hidalgo in downtown Nueva Escandon and cleaned toilets in and cleaned toilets in restaurants like El Cabrito del Norte on Calle Carranza, the main street. According to your mother, he broke many hearts, though he denied it. Knowing their family would destroy his dream of traveling north, he postponed marriage as long as he could. Besides, he felt obliged to send his wife money for his children back home. Today, you marvel that you never met his mother, especially your father, your siblings, and that he had refused to talk about them all your life. People couldn't believe that you knew nothing about them. Eventually, he acquired a crossing card and walked over the international bridge to Escandon, Texas. On American soil, for the first time, he fell on his knees and thanked the Virgen de Guadalupe. Now it was just a matter of months before he could leave, so he bought American clothes. He tried to cross as often as he could so that he could learn the ways of the gringos and learn to speak gringo, preferably during the middle of the week when few American tourists visited Nueva Escandon. But most of the week, he was busy washing toilets. On weekends, he attended to a shoe shine stand in the Plaza Hidalgo across from the street from the Cabrito del Norte. Okay, and then when traffic light turned green, you twisted the motorcycle throttle, and took off. After crossing the highway, you turned left onto the street's access road and headed south toward the Rio Grande. You glimpsed rooftops on the Mexican side of the river before turning west on the cobblestone street where flat-roofed, whitewashed buildings with grated windows stood. Edifice on the north bank dating back to the founding of the city in the 18th century. Soon you roared into a plaza similar to those in Mexico or Spain. A dark cross stood on the steeple that rose from St. Augustine Church. Located west of it was the Plaza Zaragoza, a tree-filled square with a kiosk at its center. As you cruise past another whitewashed building with grated windows on its 3 floors, you slowed down. 6 flags hung from poles above the entrance to the Hotel El Convento, which faced the plaza and a line of waiting taxis. Your father was headed home the day it happened. Purple and orange cloaked that late afternoon. It was cool. He was tired. At the same time, he was excited that soon he would go north. He had spent several years waiting for this. In fact, he had bought a pair of American cowboy boots. He could have bought them in Nueva Escandon, but he wanted to brag that he wore Tony Lamas. Then he went to an American movie at the Plaza Theater in downtown Escandon, across the street from City Hall, and sat through it, understanding almost nothing. When a friend asked him why, he said he had to get used to hearing gringo, and there was no better way to do that. He also discovered Coney Island hot dogs and American root beer. He was especially happy that he could cross the border legally. Needing a new jacket for the trip, since this would be very cold in Chicago, he dropped by El Preso Fijo, a men's store, to see if there was a sale. It had been closed for repairs, but maybe it was open again. It wasn't. So he headed south past a bank, then Sears Roebuck, and some old houses converted into offices toward Plaza Zaragoza. Suddenly, a monarch butterfly hovered before him. He stopped. A wave of monarchs engulfed him. In Mexico, people found Jesus everywhere. Tree trunks, tortillas, the stars, you name it. They also saw ghosts. An apparition of the Virgen de Guadalupe, he wondered. Then he remembered he was now in America, where the gringos were scientists and didn't believe in this nonsense. However, Escandon had once been part of Mexico, and Mexicans still lived here. It was Catholic territory. He remembered what the guy who hired him to clean the toilets at the Cabrito del Norte told him, that Escandon and Nuevo Escandon were in the path of monarchs migrating to the Sierra Madre for the winter. Oh, and that's it. He said or thought as he strolled through the orange and black butterflies. Then as he came around the corner, he saw an apparition. Better than an apparition. In fact, he halted, not more than a few feet from where he would one day own a shoe shine stand across the street from Plaza Zaragoza. A young woman, a lovely young woman. And that was all I needed to know, he told you. She was one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen. That was the first time I saw your mother. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, and thank you for that reading, just introducing us to the setting and getting us into the story. That was a great way to start off the event tonight. Reading next today is Martin Zelder. Prior to writing Recovering Maurice, Martin spent many years as a professor of economics at schools including Northwestern University, Duke University, and Australian National University. He has received teaching awards and published numerous articles and book chapters on topics including divorce, suicide, love, altruism, and health spending. Recovering Maurice is his first work of fiction. And in this novel, we follow the rumpled 60-ish Professor Maurice who believes he has a good life, wife, home, and job until a chance encounter with a mysterious woman reading a book about trauma. From that moment, Maurice begins to examine the trauma that has shaped his own life. We'll hear more of the story unfold now from Martin himself.
Thank you, Hala. I'm so deeply moved to see so many people here that I've known for so many years, some dear friends and relatives. God bless you. The book spans a long period between the early 1960s and the present day. As a reference point, Maurice was born in 1960, like some other people I know. So, Chapter 2, Maurice plays a game with his brother Emile, 1963. By the time he was 3 years old, Maurice could sense that the world was a place where things could go horribly wrong. He sensed this because of what had happened to his older brother. The fragments of knowledge held by Maurice somehow told him that it had already gone wrong for Emile, his brother, before Maurice was even there. Emile was pretending to perform neurosurgery on Maurice. Maurice was 3, Emile 7. The boys were in the living room in their matching pajamas. Maurice was prone on the red and green blanket, playing at being unconscious. On the floor next to him sat Emile, peering intently down, eyes framed by a crisp white surgical mask and a hand towel wrapped around his hair and ears and knotted loosely in the back. Emile's right hand, extended, was placed on the side of Maurice's head, with Emile's delicate thumb and forefinger pressed tightly at their tips, pinpointing a precise spot on Maurice's cranium. Emile knew how to do this because he had been the recipient of the actual surgery 2 years earlier. Emile's story began before that. A brilliant, beautiful, exceptional boy. His gifts were prodigious, as illustrated by his learning the alphabet in one iteration, which had taken about 3 minutes. He knew so much, so early, like countries of the world and constellations. When Emile was little, he disappeared in the middle of a summer afternoon. His mother, Penelope, was frantic and searched for 15 minutes before she eventually discovered Emile perched on his tricycle atop the median of a busy nearby street. He was gleefully identifying the cars as they passed. Maserati, Buick, Citroën, Chevrolet. Penelope delicately ushered her immensely curious son from the median back to the sidewalk and sighed. Emile's protection required unusual vigilance. Penelope was forced to curtail Emile's visits to the neighborhood sandbox after Emile's unrelenting insistence that the other children should eat sand, which he mischievously referred to as oxide cereal. Neighborhood parents did not find this to be as hilarious and clever as Emile did. So Penelope quickly found other solitary activities for Emile. The more alarming problem started just after Maurice was born, when Emile was 4. Reading, always a refuge for him, became impossible. His vision became hopelessly blurred. The piercing headaches followed. Emile's symptoms were those of a midbrain tumor, as if Emile's encyclopedic mind was pressing outward. To confirm this, Emile's brain would need to be surgically explored immediately. This surgery then induced trauma to areas of Emile's brain, but did not find a tumor. Emile now suffered from hydrocephalus, cerebrospinal fluid pressing on the brain, which might have been the cause of the original symptoms, or worse, a result of the surgery. So a shunt had to be installed to drain the cerebrospinal fluid, and this shunt came with its own problems. And the lesions had left Emile with a propensity for epileptic seizures, frightening in their severity. Emile tried, in his own way, to explain to his little brother Maurice and to himself what had happened. 3-year-old Maurice could not really understand what Emile had lost, and perhaps never really would. But for now, he would play the surgery game. Emile had taught Maurice this word, surgery, and so many others. Maurice held his eyes tightly closed, trying not to squirm, trying to do right for Emile. Chapter 5, Maurice Worries and Scrutinizes, 1969. So Maurice is about 9 years old here. He was filled with a silent, queasy dread on those nights when his parents would go out. Even though he and Emile were left with a benevolent babysitter, Maurice wondered whether his parents would return. After all, the sitter had been left with a list compiled by Penelope, which enumerated Emile's medical history in case of any emergency. Maurice had seen the list, and although he didn't grasp the scientific details, its spiky technical language hinted at the severity of Emile's condition. It read, 1961, craniectomy and cerebellar exploration. 1961, Torkelson shunt procedure. 1962, removal of posterior fossa cyst. 1962, insertion of shunt with Holter valve. 1967, correction of obstructed Holter valve. After this were listed Emile's physicians with their phone numbers, including pediatrician, neurologist, neurosurgeon, ophthalmologist, and more, a comprehensive list. About 2 hours after his parents' departure, Maurice grew fearful. Was that a siren he heard? How long could dinner or a concert last? What sorts of calamities were imaginable? The sitter's reassurances were unconvincing. The accumulated evidence of dozens of previous safe returns also did not aid Maurice. There was peril when people left, he knew, although he could not explain it. Sleep, with its own departure and return, filled Maurice with distress. Attempts to sleep were so frequently fractured with awakenings that Maurice perceived he had not slept at all. To soothe his sleep, Penelope, his mother, began playing a record, Van Cliburn's My Favorite Chopin, at bedtime. So in the years to come, hearing Chopin often elicited from Maurice a mixture of measured calm and occluded worry. The formidable challenge of sleep for Maurice was not, however, resolved by exposure to Chopin, and his anxieties were compounded by what could happen to Emile. Because of Emile's neurological damage, he was subject to periodic grand mal epileptic seizures. Despite their frequency, Maurice never got used to these events. He began to recognize the precursors, the fixed stare, the initial tremors, and knew enough to notify his parents or the babysitter, who came and monitored and protected Emile as the twitching grew more violent and spasmodic, repeating with inexplicable and unpredictable ferocity. He watched his brother's skin turn purple as his breathing was interrupted and wondered each time whether breath would be restored. It always was, but this did not comfort Maurice. After that, Emile would sleep, snoring loudly. Maurice watched helplessly devoid of heroism every time as his brother slipped away and somehow then returned. He shivered with dread at the terrifying mystery, wondering how it felt. Although it certainly wasn't the burden borne by Emile, Maurice's sleep deprivation was more impairing than he realized. He would learn much later that his problem was sleep apnea, where you stop breathing over and over again. But for now, his inability to sleep induced greater anxiety in the boy. He spoke and acted rapidly, not anticipating the consequences of what might happen next. He did not know how to bluff or conceal in any other way, and no one ever taught him how to do this. Furthermore, Maurice had inherited from Penelope a tendency to exhibit any and all emotions, often much an exaggeration of the underlying feeling in his facial expressions. Maurice was also troubled by the natural world. Plants of all sorts tended to be unruly and disinclined to occupy the tidy rectangular spaces Maurice preferred. Maurice had imbibed this value from his parents in different senses. The lawn was his father Ralph's domain, and as such was vigorously manicured and bagged, maintaining a uniform height throughout. Yet Ralph's exactitude paled in comparison to the pruning engineered by his mother Penelope. Plants, Maurice observed, seemed prone to grow in all sorts of directions, and unintentional chaos. Such anarchy was, however, not Penelope's way, and thus was vigorously eliminated by angular and unsparing clipping. To Maurice, it seemed as if the collection of skeletal plants and shrubs almost trembled at the sight of Penelope. Maurice permanently acquired from these experiences a certain reverence for methodical lawn care and gardening. His devotion was frequently commanded by the disorder of the natural world. Low-hanging tree branches, prickly and alarming weeds, promiscuously growing shrubs, dirt-strewn sidewalks. Having spotted one or more of these calamities, Maurice would moan softly and try unsuccessfully to look away. Why were these excesses tolerated? Ralph and Penelope would not countenance such anarchy, nor would Maurice once his time came. But in the meantime, Maurice's pulse throbbed at the remaining mess, and he grimaced. Why, he wondered, did people plant things at all? After all, there was so much that grew of its own accord, virally, heedless of consequences, that made no sense or made things worse, that swallowed the methodical designs of roads and buildings. No, what made sense to Maurice was pruning, the inexorable process launched by human reflection and judgment. Pruning, in the broadest sense, was essential because things were not as they should or could be. Instead, they were overgrown, diseased, clotted, invasive, obstructive, toxic. A judicious hand could fix things, he thought, not realizing that just such fixing had been tried with Emile by the doctors. Because Ralph and Penelope did comprehend this, though, it infected his family with a sense of looming peril, regardless of whether they tried to fix things. Jump ahead to 2019. Maurice's mother is dying. The unresolved matter was Emile. The hospice aides told Maurice that now, in mid-January, Penelope had little time left. There was thus one question on Penelope's mind. Will you take care of Emile? The first time, Maurice gasped at the question's premise, that his mom would no longer take care of Emile. He had done so little before, Maurice thought, and wondered if he could do enough now. Of course I will, he reassured her over and over as she renewed the question in the fading afternoon light. Maurice could not be sure, but he believed his mom was still unconvinced even now. More reassurance was necessary. He knew that Penelope expected more from him, but that neither had the faith that he possessed more. It was the truth Maurice had known since the earliest days of childhood. He invariably had room for improvement. That night, as Penelope slept and briefly revived, She would look up at Maurice expectantly, weakly inquiring, "Will you?" Eventually, Maurice told her what he finally knew to be true. "You have given him everything, above and beyond what any person could possibly do. I can give him the rest. Please believe me." His mom smiled and sighed with hard-wrought contentment. "Thank you, honey." The next morning, when she was still and pale and no longer, Maurice thought she was beatific in the knowledge that one son could still help the other at long last. Because it had come along so quickly, Penelope's death was especially difficult for Maurice to accept, made more difficult because he had not attained what Emile would have if he had not been damaged. So Maurice grieved over all that had not been realized with his mom and by himself, and that never would be. What was left to Maurice was helping Ralph and Emile. Ralph's dementia progressed slowly and sporadically, erasing pieces of Ralph little by little. This gave Maurice time to comprehend better, albeit quite imperfectly, his dad's eventual end. By the same token, Maurice was also forced to witness Ralph's longer path of decline without knowing how far it might extend. Given all that dementia had extracted from Ralph over the preceding years, Maurice wondered if his father's death would involve a certain dignified mercy for both of them. Hallucinations of swooping vultures and being lost at the train station had haunted Ralph then. Death would remove these, but also would take Ralph's luminous comfort and smiles. In the end, at Ralph's bedside, on the portable CD player, Maurice played Glenn Miller music as a link to Ralph's past. Ralph had been a gleeful, although not terribly melodious singer. "Pardon me, is that the Chattanooga choo-choo?" In the last days, Maurice begged for lucidity. The silly jokes, the pop of a baseball in a mitt in the backyard. In Ralph's room, that last too late time, he wept at what had left. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was really a great, there was a lot of emotions going on, but really a great spread. And I think that is an excellent way to really get us into the mindset of this character. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I am now ready, or we are now ready to go to our final reader for the evening, who is Travis Hupp. For almost 30 years, Travis has been writing poetry about resilience, self-acceptance, opposing bigotry, resisting authoritarianism, finding God in the ruins and at our sides, every form and expression of love, metaphysics, psychic communication, fostering empathy, fighting through mental health struggles, overcoming hypocrisies, immersing in nature, and plenty of other topics and themes. But tonight, if you're seeking acknowledgement of the dark times we're living in and hope for a brighter tomorrow, you'll find both in American Entropy. This collection of poetry stands with the marginalized, finds glimpses of God amid ruins, and rages against the rise of authoritarianism in America. It presents anger as a necessity and politics as an oppressive, stupefying farce. Travis, go ahead and unmute and take it away.
Okay. Thank you guys for being here. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right. Okay. The first poem I'm going to read is called 87% of the Time in the Simulation. When the mood strikes its moon pole, it is a veil whose wearer doesn't weep. When they build you a statue, will you come see it, or would being photographed in front of it thumbs upping just be too much? If they step on your fingers when you're picking up drop pens and drop whispers, tell them the monsters came for you and you're getting along all right. If they cry when they know you're looking and that makes you love them, well then love them for it. Brief the guardian of your heart's gated secrets that sometimes you find the rhyme that's welcome any time. And when you find it, you must tie it to the sturdy chair of your aw shucks disenchantment, and it will tell you its truest tale or have to get through one real beast of a bad time that stretches over and across the glitch in the picture of the screensaver shoreline shown to the traumatized intern you psychically linked with 87% of the time in the simulation. In the backyard of tribulation you might find Amen still milling about their business, kissing blessings. Your best bet is believing the seed of salvation still resides in. Still and always there slouches a shadow, stutters the gallery of ghosts I get good intel from. Hard pass on back rubs, my mind's eye says to them, while right in front of me you're saying you love me. Really, you love me, but just not like that. Maybe he's lying, I think wildly, graspingly, and maybe you are, but even if so, I won't know unless I'm psychic, like the little quiz online said I wasn't. If you know when it's done by pure instinct all the time, you're better at this than I. The end of one poem and start of another can be such thin battle lines. This next one is called Let It Go. Duality is a one-man show, performed tonight at the end of my rope. What if I just let it go? My eyes on skies calling me home. I can't sleep, I can't wake up, it's in my head, it's in my blood. Dull roar, heavy pressure, maddening love. If I was smart, I'd cut and run. It's like the romance to a cigarette, the appeal of the precipice, carefully administering the trip, flirting with falling off a cliff. Part of me is curled up fetal, part of me longs for the needle. The part that's fond of whatever's fatal, I hold in stasis the best I'm able. This next one is called It's Not Too Late. Looks like I'll have to do things differently. No more hitting and missing intermittently. Gotta buckle down and not knuckle under. Reclaim my mind and unearth wonder. Howling dogs and circling bats. New dawn awaits and darkness won't last. Yesterday droned on destitute. My meaning got lost and my muse went mute. But there's a part of me that still knows what to do. Power through and write what's true. You're coming unglued. Eyes shut tight, conjure up a better view. Then the sorry sight of the aimless life I led, letting liars and defilers get in my head. Enough of that and enough of losing, enough blood bled and enough ego bruising. I'll limp towards love till I'm fit to outrun demons and downfalls with shackles undone. I've got friends I know would hide me from the consequences I've been inviting, but I can face into the fire and find the poems burning down in spires. I always knew I wasn't born to wallow without evolving cocoon and squalor, without challenging the trauma traders who corrupt you, crush you, and leave you cratered. So I say here and now I'm in this fight. I'll stop living wrong and fumble towards right. I'll make my mother in heaven feel proud. I'll show up on time to show what I'm about. It's something I learned but forgot to remember when every turn I took was another dead ender. When every trick I knew, the devil knew too. When tawdry temptation was a damn heady brew. I can't unwaste a single day, but I can pray it's not too late. I can't shoulder sad, sick shame, so I'm setting out to redeem my name. I'm here and I'll recognize what's mine. Grab what I'm given tight when stars align. I won't say screw it, I'll say faster. Speed is my steed for skirting disaster. This next one is called Throttle. If I can find it. Here we go. Run it down and throttle it just to prove who's badder. What an unfortunate soft animal drifting in range of your temper. I hope we both escape you. I'm just going to be honest. I hope you snatch at my sleeve when I leave and catch. This next one is called What All I Like. I like this journal. The pages are heavy. I'm getting after it, attacking it with poetry. I like dogs whose paws run on air in their sleep and cats who do the flirt flop in front of you. I'm reacquainting myself with what all I like because I remember joy belongs to me too. I like the way you lean when you say yo, tilting forward like you might fall on me. I'd like the chance to catch you in my arms like in my dreams. I like blue, 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 and all variations splashed all over everything. I'm tripping out of tune, but I also like to sing. I like food, 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 savored and shared or mine all mine voraciously. I like a man whose appetites easily outmatch his apathy. Comics from Marvel I really like. I like writing poems about Gambit. If you're injured or falling ill, I like riding with you in the ambulance. I like a lot of things I recall. This list could get quite long, but mostly I like it when you're here more than when you're gone. This next one is called Talking Sense. Chow down on lies, torture the truth, never fact check your precious Fox News. You're undermining and maligning intellect, but you know what? Screw it, steer into the wreck. Death to brains, death to brains, death to brains, no need to strain. Death to brains, let Donald explain. When your eyes on how I get I'm talking sense, you're preaching poison. You throw such loads, it's a wonder your mouth can hoist them. I'm talking sense, but it feels pointless. A hat MAGA red, a tranquilizer for horses, a Kool-Aid cure, another sycophant sorted, into the queue, yet into the unskeptical mob, into the pile of people who would jump on a bomb to protect every strand of Donald's tumbleweed hair, exploding eagerly, sycophant everywhere. You're really the worst now, but I guess that's how you like it. You're a nationalist now, a hero for whiteness. Our association makes me queasy. I cut you off, but it doesn't stick because you're crazy. Death to brains, death to brains, death to brains and to memory. Death to brains, reality's the enemy. When your face goes slack from your regularly scheduled brainwash, I know you'll turn it back on, but I gotta try, so I turn it off. I'm talking sense, you're reaching for the remote. Your channel is sacred, it tells you all you need to know. If I question any of it, you corner me with non sequiturs bemoaning American decline, prophesizing only your orange idol can turn back that black tide. I'm talking sense, but your whole mind's white. A Bible he stamped his fleshy face on, an autograph on it too, because he's your avatar of God, a torrent of a tirade demonstrably false, a pledge of revenge that doesn't give you pause. I forgot a sycophant could get this sick. You burn everything down just to own the lids. It's hard to accept you're so far gone, serene in the cesspool, indoctrinating your spawn. Death to brains, death to brains, death to brains, you sing along. Death to brains, brand new dumb dawn. This next one is called Yesterday Repeating. Everyone leaves, memories remain, pray for amnesia to kill my pain. Lies behind my back, lies to my face, I'm not perfect, I guess I'm to blame. No one knows me, no one ever has, I gave me away, I'll never get me back. I gave me away, I was stolen. Every day I die in slow motion. Every night I lie and I know it. I say it's okay, I say it will be, but tomorrow is always yesterday repeating. This one is called The Ultimate Epic. I dream that at last you fall and fall hard. We get fiery without risking our friendship. It's just like it is in the movies, but better, because when it's not just a story, there's no necessity of conflict. Which doesn't mean there aren't stories. Even in the everyday minutiae, we find epic impetus. We become the ultimate epic about sustainable peace. You let me tell you how you gave that to me, in moments never over, now that they're logged in my memory of feeling. Like when you told me the demonic voice that drags me is a liar, and you scooted a little closer, and it made a big difference. Just being awash in what you radiate, making up for the pain of existence. This one, and it's upon self. Saying pretty day is quite a cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. The truth stays the truth, see. The poem's not wrong because it's easy. Simple to say, but means a lot. Like love the world that you got. Like it's not so bad after all. This next one is called Carrying the Stone. If I can find it. Here we go. Smoked so much it made me sick. Strangled the newborn poem in the crib. I've closed up shop for the rest of the day, maybe the week the way I feel at this rate. I've got to take better care of myself. The routine rhyme scheme becomes a death knell to what I really have a deep need to say. Maybe I'll sleep instead, flattened by chest pains. Humbled by a headache before I can peel back the layers of any dark inclinations or urgent prayers. It's no use. It's gotten obtuse. Still veering and diverse, even though I'm getting worse. Lighting up another, coloring my drawn face grayer, hunched over, hawking up lung matter. Words lie in wait to assault and batter, beat a confessional piece out of me. Curl me up on the floor, candor just bleeds. I told poetry no, now no is becoming the poem. Such a surprise to catch myself carrying the stone, rolling uphill boulders of brevity and levity, a Sisyphean task, all hopes of rest and recuperation dashed. I'm hungry and tired. The next verse is starving for me and staring saucer-eyed alert, making my nerves misfire. Peace of mind is unprioritized. The whole view that I've done enough won't hold up, can't shut off my stuff. It comes to claim me no matter how, clamping down like cardiac arrest. It's never finished, and when I tell it not to start, my willpower taffy more smoke apart. Lights my brain on fire, uses my spine to my chair, sets my pen on scrying, lays the brutal truth bare, that I'm not going anywhere till the wild rhythm rattling my bones become fair, and breaks loose from me, a living thing. I'll sacrifice my sleep to its slithering. This next one is called Whoever You Are. Why would I even remember you at all? Tell me one good reason, whoever you are. Trot out one good memory, if you even can, from the seedy underbelly of bad juju's natural habitat. Who would you even say came by to call? Tell me what this season finds your nom de guerre. Rattle the names off that caged you before, the call signs, the rapper handles of the winter or its war. Where will you seduce springtime, and where will your autumn groupies caravan to fall? Quell my hypnic jitters, spill the tea, suss the sauce. Put your power move in the planner. Keep your fandom fibrillating and paying to wait. To see you flip your hair, to snare sips of your rarefied air, limping to line up, first row from your fresh face, overplaying strange charades. This next one is called Sick. It's just a fight and nothing flows. We're all dumbed down and ashamed to go. We carry scars we never address. We're past caring whether the past's at rest. I don't know how to do this without you. You never show up for me, but I always think you're about to. I'm sick of waiting and sick in general. I want you, not your trifling collateral. It's all pain and no one abides. We're all pulled under and washed out by the tide. We harbor hurt we know not the root of. Our tolerance skyrockets. Now we need a new drug. You can't hope to find more meaning than my heart slick and your hands gleaming. You're sick of stagnation and sick of serenades. You want no one and nothing but your own lonely grave. This next one is called Maybe This Time, once I get to it. The nightmares got so bad, I got to take medicine to stop them. The southern night makes so many sounds, its music rejuvenates my vibration. The seizure seized me and then let me go, leaving me jittery and jarred deep down. The thing is, other life must be out there somewhere. Maybe it don't want to be found. The hairline's patchy, the gut protruding. In pictures, I see how I've aged. The truth is, it's down to us to save each other, or else we don't deserve to be saved. The form might not be fit anymore, a thing it shakes me some to admit. The fact remains, if there's a war for your soul to be fought, mine requires I fight in it. The fatigue lasts forever. I seem to have energy to burn only when tossing in bed. The birds and bugs do solid. Listening soothes my restless leg. Stress shows up as neck pain, throbbing as random and splintered as lightning. The bad dreams have always been with me, but maybe this time they find me. This new one is called Signaling. A flood of physiology fighting to become the first or last word. All night long, for mysterious reasons, barking, growling dogs. All life has a right to its signalings of satisfaction or dissatisfaction. The cat regards me coolly, his thoughts inscrutable as usual. It's up to me to find a place for this electric longing that lightnings my lassitude. I will nest it safely here, returning to visit at regular intervals. There's a distance only this closes, this process of mining kinds of landmines, categorizing the mic drops and logic loops and peaks of every trip to bridge the gap between all that is and all I know how to let in. Not to mention what I now know enough not to. Doors you can't lock until you stop adjudicating their existence as debatable. There do exist primordial enemies. He is fact, the devil devouring. And fact, the doubtful still doubting, a loving God even as he saves them from how many snapping jaws so often they stop noticing. This is a place for showing I notice him. In the protective growls of my dogs who would defend me from any size devil, and the imperturbable nap of my cat's calm non-judgment, in the pull on my innards by the promise of blank paper, in omens daily, in reconciliation with kin, in longer, angrier hurricane seasons, in discovery of living doctrine. This next one is called Anywhere But Splitsville. If you won't get away from me, how can I concentrate? If you won't stay with me, let the feelings evaporate. I'm putting too much on you, I know. My needs are a mite contradictory. I run the good ones off, then cuss them for getting gone. That's the plot of my whole history. Why should it be any different with you? Why should this ride lead anywhere but Splitsville? I never told you I like flowers. They insult my manly powers. Get on out of here with your daffodils. For some reason, you ain't scared. Our eyes lock stare to stare. Oh, there are so many ways loving each other to go kerplooey. If you dare, I dare to fan flames that flare, because in all my life, I swear it's only you who ever knew me. This one's called Cracked Open. I see you got your color up, got them quackers all aligned. That's good, best to be prepared. Too fit to flee, tightened and right. For plucking, berry by berry, straight from the vine. Any drawbridge will drop for you. Any password you give will do just fine. Go on in, get everything you can. Wrestle if you want it, seize the razor with both hands. The light is all yours, no blockhead. Mine's money, no losses to offset. No stinging rebuke from the sad suckers bamboozled by your bright brain ballooning, hopped up on helium so you can lift what they're losing. You got the funds funneled into your jingle jangling pockets. Plink, plink go the goods from all wishing wells. Waboosh, says your wallet. Stuffed beyond capacity, green to match the vista's budding blooms. Vaping casually in the verdant fronds, backwards ball cap tastefully askew. You're clean as a whistle, your timber clear as a bell. You ring-a-ling for hors d'oeuvres from the help. You're the tingle in every taste bud, you make folks just melt. Your hand wins again, your public wants impaled. You keep a locked lid on any chef's secret about how you mix your potent marinade. Sizzle, sizzle goes the tenderized, carefully seasoned mindscape of the latest hick on your hook, wriggling, stewing in his juices. Senses gone swimmy, now you're all he sees, savory and shimmering. Do you know you got a world here quivering to be cracked open? Do you maintain a detached veneer to toy with your supplicants' emotions? You've just got to give us a peek inside where you keep the real bling bling in the freshest freaky style. You could show us how you know us by the currency we carry, but you just hang loose and break our blues, busting moves so smooth it's scary.
Hey, thank you so much for that reading, Travis. I just want to make sure we have time to get to our Q&A, but that was such a great display of all the variety of the poetry and the emotion in there. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you very
So
much.
at this time, yeah, of course. At this time, we do have some time for our audience Q&A. So for anyone who has a question for one or more of our authors, go ahead and put those in the chat and I will make sure they get asked. We do have a question already in that is for all authors, actually. So this question is, what was the first idea or moment that set this book in motion for you? I'm thinking we could go in reading order. So Carlos, do you want to start us off with this one? Looks like you are still muted, Carlos.
Sorry about that. Well, when my editor, I wrote another book called Sex is a Political Condition. And then I finished it, got it published, etc. And then I started another book. And one day my editor said, this is my own personal editor. He says, "Listen, Carlos, you haven't been able to get out of that mindset that you were in writing Sex is a Political Condition, which was really a very body irreverent novel." Okay. And I said, okay, let me try to get out of it. And so I struggled. I couldn't get out of it. And finally I said, I'm just going to start completely from scratch. And so that's what I did. And then I wanted to also do experiments with the style. So I wrote it in the second person. And everything's invented from scratch, although obviously the novel is informed by what's been going on around me. You know, a lot of violence, a lot of stuff going on around here. And that was it. That's where it started.
Yeah, sometimes it can just be that thing that makes you think about it and it starts the ball rolling from there. Martin, what about you? What was the first idea or moment that set this book in motion for you?
I was walking my dog and we heard chirping in the wetlands near our house. And the chirping ended up being frogs that were born a couple of months later. That was the beginning. I wrote a little essay, and that was the start of the whole thing, like 8 years ago.
Well, yeah, that is a beautiful, just such a beautiful visual kind of that just set this whole project up. That's a great kind of moment to hone in on. And Travis, what about you, especially as a prolific poet? What was the first moment or idea that you knew this collection had to come together?
Well, I've written 2 collections previously, Faster Annihilators and Sin and I. And it just seemed natural that a third collection should be coming after that shortly. But I was looking at a lot of the political turmoil in America with the encroachment of authoritarianism on the country, and I saw a lot of despair in the country. I saw that we were having some dark times, and I wanted to venture into that and talk about it and call it out in ways that I think are necessary, because I think that can be a kind of resistance. And I also knew it was equally important to find threads of hope and find, like the description on the back of the book says, God even amid the ruins, and find the things that we should still be grateful for, that we can still find vibrance and joy in, and that can hold us together and help us be there for each other. And so it seemed important to me to get all of that together in one collection. And it's the longest collection I've ever written, because once I started writing about it, words just kept pouring, poems just kept emanating from me. And it seemed like it came together into being exactly pretty much what I envisioned.
Yeah, I mean, that touches on this concept that, of course, poets have been political dissenters and have expressed that dissent through poetry for decades, maybe centuries even.
Right.
So I think that totally touches right on that idea. Very much makes sense. We've got another question for all three of you. This is from EC in the chat. Are you working on another book or project? And if so, what are you working on right now? Martin, do you want to start us off this time?
I was afraid of this question. I don't have a second book. If there were a second book, it would be the story of Maurice's grandfather, Sam, a very mysterious person who was in the underworld of 1920s, 30s, 40s Chicago as a labor negotiator, a man who knew many secrets and did not tell them, and actually came from profound secrets of immigration, a long story, very rich, sort of historical fiction with certainly an emphasis on history that I know.
So like a perspective or a possible second book, if it were to be, we'll have to see if that does end up making it into development.
If I maintain my sanity through the release of this book, then we'll see.
Right, exactly. Travis, what about you? What are you working on next?
Yeah, I am actually hard at work on a fourth poetry collection. This one's going to be called What Everyone's After. It's a tentative title, but that's what I think it's going to be called. My poetic voice and style has kind of progressed into a direction that is kind of more trippy in a lot of the poems than the ones I've published so far. So I got to see, can find where the line is between making it just so trippy it's cool and people like it, and too trippy to where people are like, huh, what is this even about? But I'm hard at work on it. I've got about 80 poems that I'm developing for it so far. I want it up to around 100 at least, so it'll be coming along.
Right, so an upcoming collection. Yeah, that's exciting to be on the lookout for. And Carlos, what about you? What's your next work in the works?
Well, I've been writing fiction for about the last 4 or 5 years, and I have 2 other books that I've already completed that are unpublished, that are getting, they're in the pipeline. A collection of short stories and a another novel. And but in the meantime, I decided to take a break for about a year. And so while I promote this book and then make arrangements to get the other ones published, I seldom figured out which is going to be published next. What I really love to do is come out with the collection of stories entitled Dante's Crimes and Other Tales of Tex-Mex Horror. And because that really should come out really right on the heels of this one. But I'll make the decision later. In the meantime, what I'm going to do, I've undertaken the unthinkable idea or project of writing some poetry in this next year. And so I formed a group of poets, and 2 of them are very good. One guy has an MFA. And I'm dedicating myself the entire year to just studying poetry, the contemporary poets, my favorite poets from the past, and trying to figure out, how to write the kind of poetry I like.
So a couple of potential projects in the pipeline. I think just like with the others, this is very exciting to hear from all three of you. We have another question for Martin. This is from Phil. My perception of you has been most centered on your intellectual pursuits. Has your emotional expression come to the level you reveal here in your reading in the past? And if so, when did that happen?
That's a superb question, and I don't think I can give anywhere near adequate answer. I've always been an emotional person and more exhibited that through music, and had loved to read fiction when I was younger, but didn't really have the first clue about how to write it. And I'm 64, and I needed to be the age I am to write this and to know how to register and describe those feelings. I didn't have that in me when I was younger. I wouldn't have known how to do it in any way that would have been other than crappy. And so I feel glad that I was this case of late development. Did I answer?
I think
Okay.
so. Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
It's interesting to see those insights into that kind of creative process like that. And even sometimes because it spans fiction and more academic kind of writing. So yeah, thank you for that. Well, at this time, I just want to say it was so wonderful to hear all three of these authors bring their writing to life in their own voices. So to Carlos, Martin, and Travis, thank you so much for being generous with your time tonight and for sharing these excerpts with us. Also to the audience, thank you all of you for being here as well to help us celebrate these wonderful writers. Of course, I want to remind you that you can order Pillars of Creation, American Entropy, and Recovering Maurice from the links in the chat. I'll just put those in there one more time for you so you don't have to kind of dig through. But please also consider checking out atmospherepress.com to browse our new and forthcoming releases, sign up for our email newsletter, or of course, submit a book manuscript of your own. You can submit your work to books@atmospherepress.com and let us know that you attended today's event. We'll look forward to hearing from you, but until then, that's it for tonight. So have a great rest of your week, everyone.
Thank you very much.